Welcome to the Old Mutual Two Oceans Marathon video series. In this video, we are going to take a close look at the 56-kilometer ultra marathon route with information provided by Professor Ross Tucker. The Old Mutual Two Oceans Ultra Marathon is very much a race of two halves, and the significant challenges are backloaded, coming in the second half. This puts a premium on how you manage your effort over the race. It's true in every race that you have to pace yourself wisely, but when the second half throws up Chapman's Peak, Constantinik, and a tricky finish past Kirstenbosch, that all becomes the more important. So let's take a look at the route, stage by stage. The first 10 kilometers are relatively easy and are a good opportunity for you to find a rhythm and ease yourself into the challenge. It's flat, relatively sheltered, and the huge crowds of runners and adrenaline of the moment should see you reaching Tokai relatively comfortably. As easy as this section might be, don't lose concentration. If you're racing to a plan, this is the time to be most disciplined about it, because it's quite easy to get through 10 kilometers a few minutes faster than your ideal schedule. From 10 kilometers to the half marathon mark in Fishhook, the wind can sometimes be a challenge along the more exposed coastal sections. If it is windy, stay in the groups for shelter if you need to, and continue to relax because the work begins soon after. The half marathon mark heralds a change in tempo and rhythm as you turn off Main Road for the first time and make your way towards Sun Valley and the first climb, that of Chapman's Peak. This is a good time to gather yourself, catch up on fueling yourself, and looking to arrive at Noordhoek feeling as far as possible like you've just completed your warm-up. Chapman's Peak is the iconic climb in the race, arguably one of the most beautiful sections of running you can do in a race anywhere in the world, so don't forget to absorb that beauty even as you tackle the challenge. The climb starts shortly after 29 kilometers and is not all that difficult to climb. It's 4.5 kilometers long, but it's not that steep, and it's also interrupted by a short descent and some flat roads along the way. It's still crucial that you hold back here. Protect your legs so that you're still strong when the more challenging climb of Constantinik further along the route. Chapman's Peak climbs in two stages. First, there's a 1 kilometer pull-up to the summit of Little Chappies just after 30 kilometers. That's followed by a descent of about 800 meters before the longer 3 kilometer climb up to Chappies proper. It is fair to say that you would consider 30 kilometers to be your true halfway point of the race. In other words, you can probably double your time at 30 kilometers to get your finish time. That's because the second half of the race is much more challenging. From the summit of Chapman's Peak, you will descend 4 kilometers into Hout Bay, where there will be a real temptation to let go and fly downhill to make up for some lost time. But remain vigilant to your pacing strategy. Once you pass the marathon mark soon after Hout Bay, you will be on to the major challenge of the day, the climb up Constantinik. The climb is gradual, between 2 to 4% for about 2 kilometers, where you may be also exposed to the sun. It's mentally and physically tough, but stay in the moment and tackle the challenge segment by segment. The steepness really kicks in at about 44 kilometers, where you're firmly under the tree cover again. The last 2 kilometers to the summit has the steepest gradient of the whole race, up to 10% at times, and the sooner you can find your own comfortable rhythm on these steep roads, the better. Consider a walk-run strategy here if you are in any doubt. Once through Constantinik, it is a 3 kilometer descent down towards Cecilia Forest. This section is notorious for the slight undulations and the camber, so try to find the most comfortable line, usually in the middle of the road, and pace for yourself. Shortly after the 50 kilometer mark, you will pass the top gate of Kirstenbosch, followed by a particularly sharp 3 kilometer downhill section to the bottom gate of Kirstenbosch. If you've managed your race well and have good legs, you can really start to cash in here, all the way from the top gate to the M3 at 53 kilometers. This section is very fast on good legs, but can be very painful on tired ones, which is why that patience earlier was so important. Once on the M3, you will hit the last few minor hills of the day. A relatively short 400 meter section called Chet's Hill, as well as the final pull-up to UCT. You wouldn't even notice these hills at the start of the race, but on tired legs, they will force you to dig deep. Once you're onto the soft UCT grass fields, you are home. So soak in the cheers and adulation and enjoy the triumph of your Two Oceans voyage.